And so why reinvent the wheel? Let's keep on doing what we're doing. And so what we're going to do today is, these next 3 training sessions, we're going to break it down into 3 small segments. Today we're going to talk about our green voters, our Greenside voters. For those of you who worked in June, you know who those Greenside voters are. They're our voters in our black register book, and we'll cover that. And then next week we'll talk about our red voters, our voters who require a provisional ballot, require a little bit more hand-holding. And then we'll come together that final week, tie it all together, and get our supply bags more off and running. Okay? One of the things that Ken and I have been talking about this election season, we've tried to come up with a theme or a word for this election season, and we sat down and talked about it. And, the word that we came up with is consistency. We want to be consistent in everything we do. Right now we're doing early voting over the counter in our office. We're doing early voting at our 13 satellite sites throughout Polk County. And when we talked to them last week for their training, we focused on consistency. We want the Clive Library doing the same thing as the Altoona Library, so on and so forth. That's what we want you doing. We want what Mona Bond's doing over there at Wesley Acres, the same thing as Dorothy's doing over there at Hosanna Church. We want consistency. We feel like if we can stay consistent with things, when problems do arise, we're able to pinpoint that problem, why it occurred, and fix it. So that's what we're going to focus on today in these next few weeks, to be consistent in everything we do. My thought is I'm an old football coach. If we're going to do things bad, let's do it consistently bad. If we're going to do things good, let's do it consistently good.
Well, we're Iowa State team this week.
Exactly. So that's what we're going to focus. You're going to hear me say consistency a lot in these next few weeks. I want us to be consistent in everything we do. That being said, you have some handouts in front of you. And I want to talk about the green side is your morning, and the red side is your evening. And on election day, precinct captains, as you know, and Janet is new. Thanks for coming to us, Janet. As precinct captains, as you know, you will find this card on the side of your voting machine in this side pocket. You'll be waiting for you on election day, just like always. At 6 o'clock in the morning, you want to get to your polling place. You want to find your voting machine, and you want to make sure that that voting machine is set up in a place where it'll be good for voters for the entire day. Okay? And then what you want to do is you want to make sure that, Sally, right? Thanks, Sally. I'll say, hey, Steve Morrow hasn't showed up yet, what do I do? Those are all very important questions. We need our pens, we need our pay claim form, and we need Steve Morrow to show up to work, right? Those are all important things. But when you call me and ask me those questions, I'm going to turn around, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to say, hey, Gloria, is your machine turned on yet? Okay? I want your machine turned on first. I want that to be the first thing you do is turn your machine on. If you didn't get your machine turned on by 6:15, 6:20, the hard part's over. Now we're just moving cables and chairs around, putting signs on the walls, and getting ourselves ready for a long day, right? And this green card is all you need, if you remember correctly. This green card is all you need to get your machine up and running. So I quickly want to go over this with you real quick. Broken down into 3 tasks. We have a voting machine task. Task number 2 is opening on and turning on your ADA device. And then task number 3 is administrative tasks. So a lot of you, this is, you've seen all this before, but please humor me and follow along with me. Number 1, it says unlock door A to remove the contents. Well, where do we find the keys to do that, precinct captains? We find it in our little pocket folder just like this. It's a clear pocket folder, and this will be located in your brown bag. And I'll give this to you when you come and see me on our final meeting. Right inside your brown bag will be a clear pocket folder like this. In this little brown folder right here will be your keys to your voting machine. Okay? And the instructions say is to unlock door A and remove all the contents. So when you unlock door A, you look inside here. Everything that's inside, you're going to want to take out. And inside here will be your green supply bag. This supply bag will have all your supplies, all of your signs, all of your provisional ballot envelopes, all of your secrecy envelopes, so on and so forth, to get you through the day. Everything will be inside here, tucked in, nice and neat here. Take it out, set it off to the side. Also inside your machine will be all of your ballots, and we're going to have lots and lots of ballots for this election. Some precincts might have 1,000 ballots on their voting machine. Some precincts might have only 800. Some, like in Yankee, might have close to 3,000. 2,500. Take all of your ballots out. Your ballots come in packages like this, and they're shrink wrapped, the packages of 100. So if you have 1,000 ballots in your voting machine, you're going to have 10 packages of 100 ballots. Take them all out, set it off to the side. Take everything out of your voting machine. Everything that's inside, take it out and lock it up. And that's the first part of our instructions. Unlock door A and remove all the contents. How do you know where door A is at? Well, there's only 2 doors to our voting machine, and door A is on the side marked A. Make sense?
We do love that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So far, so good?
Yes.
And then the next thing says we want to unlock door B and remove the extension cord. For those of you who need a refresher or don't know, door B is on the front of our voting machine. It's marked door B. It's also marked extension cord and extension cord. This is also our emergency pin. If we need to get in here, if our machine breaks down for any reason, and we need to have a quick fix until somebody comes out and fixes it, we'll put our ballots into our emergency bin until our technician comes out to fix the machine. But inside here is your extension cord. You simply open up door B, take out your extension cord, and the next thing it says to do is plug in the machine using the extension cord. 1 second. Plug in the machine using the extension cord. So you simply take your extension cord and you plug it into the surge protector that is behind the machine. Plug that into the surge protector and plug the extension cord into the wall to give it some juice. And that turns your voting machine on. There is no other thing you have to do to the machine to turn it on besides plug it into the wall. Don't got to turn any keys, don't got to press any buttons. All you got to do is plug it in and it gives it juice and the voting machine turns on. Does that make sense?
Let's say up to 3 minutes.
It does say it will take you up to 3 minutes to power up. Now I will tell you, I told you a minute ago that the word of the day, or the word of this election season was consistency. A strong second is patience. Right? We need to be patient with the voting machine. We need to be patient with the voters. We need to be patient with our co-workers. We got to have some patience. It's a long day. As long as you follow the instructions, as you know, after 3 or 4 minutes, your voting machine will turn on. Okay? And when your voting machine turns on, this is a touch screen right here. Touch screen. When your voting machine turns on, this screen will appear on your touch screen. This screen will have the date of the election, November 6, 2018, and it will have your precincts on there. If you are a facility who shares a precinct, I know that Mr. Bennett does, Des Moines 50 and 52. I know that Dorothy does, Des Moines 51. All we want to do is press that done button. Sound good? And when we do that, this screen automatically pops up.
I forget, is the screen going to already be angled up, or we're going to have to angle that up?
Good question. The screen will come down like, the screen will be positioned like this. It simply sits on a kickstand. Little plastic kickstand here. You can look at it when we're all done, because you're going to show me how you take that memory card out before you.
Right, that's it for her.
Now, this never fails. Every election, we have at least one precinct captain. They see this screen, and it says insert a paper ballot, and what do? They insert it, they pull out a ballot, and they put it in the machine. Not the end of the world, not going to affect the outcome of the day, but this is not for us. This is just letting you know when you see this screen, that's telling us that the machine's ready to go. The first paper ballot. It says next we want to do is open up the ADA device or handicap device. This machine right here, precinct captain, is our OBI handicap device for our disabled voters. It's located on the back of our voting machine. Okay? Has anybody had to use this? A few? Are you comfortable using this? Okay? If you want to see some instructions on this, we can show you when we're all done. But this is in the back of the machine. It's a touch screen. The voters make their selections on this machine, and then they enter their ballot into the ballot reader to be counted. But all we have to do, according to our instructions, when we turn this machine on, guess what? This screen pops up on the OBI device. This screen automatically pops up for you. And it says, Election Day, press continue to open voting. What do our instructions say to do? Press continue. That's all we do. Just press continue. And when we press continue on our ADA device, this next screen pops up right here, which is the keypad screen. And then our machine info and zero tape comes out automatically. It automatically will come out
On the ADA machine.
on the ADA machine. You take this out, just pull it off the machine and set it off to the side for a few minutes. We got to do a few more things yet before we're all done.
So the ADA machine is linked to the primary voting machine?
It is. It's right on the. It's right on. If I was to flip this around,
Okay.
it's right on the back side. All we do is plug it in and plug it in the wall, and it turns on.
It needs to be plugged in separately?
No,
It's
they're
all
all
together?
all together. You got it, Jim. Yep. And that's how we turn our machines on. Okay, plug it into the wall, press done on this side, press continue on this side, and we're ready. Okay, sound pretty familiar? Okay, now we have some administrative tasks. Last but not least, we have some administrative tasks we need to do. And we have some bullet points here. Bullet point number 1 says, sign and place the zero tape of the ADA and ballot reader into the sleeve on page 1. Where do you find your tally book? Your tally book will be waiting for you nice and neat, right beside your pocket folder, and it will say precinct tally book right on it. Okay? I have already done a lot of the work for you. When you get your tally books on our final training session, I'll have most of the stuff filled out already for you. Okay? I'll have things highlighted. Everything that's highlighted requires a signature from you and the rest of your team. But the instructions on our bullet point says, sign and place the zero tape of ADA and ballot reader in the sleeve on page 1. So, here is our zero tape on our ADA, correct? It came out automatically. When you press done on this machine, this zero tape automatically comes out. It's a tape, it has all the candidates on there, and it has all the races on there, and all these zeros. We call it a zero tape. You pull that out
Right.
for every precinct,
Oh, so it'll have,
56 and 57.
okay, but it won't have 41, 3, okay, got it.
Nope, you got it. Your specific precinct at your voting location. You pull it out, your team sign it, and the instructions say to what? To put it into the front page pocket of your tally book. And on the front of your tally book, in the first page, is a little plastic pocket right there. Simply put these in there. You don't need to seal it up, just put them in there, and that's step number 1. Does that make sense? Pretty simple, correct? We've done this before, right? Okay. The next thing it says to do is to record the ballot number on page 6 of our tally book. Where's our ballot reader number at? It's right here on the front of the machine. On the front of your machine is your ballot reader number. That's, I don't care what machine you have, it's always the only place up. Put our voting booths up, put our sample ballots on the walls, some signs and some posters we need to put up, our vote here signs, and cell phones. We communicate with your cell phone. Make sure your cell phone is on. Make sure you bring a charger. If your phones are like mine, my cell phone dies in about an hour. So make sure you bring a charger with you. And last but not least, if you're ever in a pickle at 6 o'clock in the morning, you call this number down here, you explain your situation, and we work through it. That's why I think to stay consistent, get the machine turned on first. That's our biggest concern. We can work through all the other stuff once we know that machine's turned on. Because we will have a voter at 7 o'clock. Okay? This is 6 o'clock in the morning. You don't need to hunt around for any other pieces of paper. There's no other directions or explanations anywhere for 6 o'clock in the morning. It's right here. This is 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock right here on this green card. Okay, we'll talk about it again next week and the week after. You might have a handout in front of you. This is just I want to quickly go over the different forms of identification a voter can use to prove who they are. Voters, green voters have an option of showing us a photo identification or signing that oath of identification form, which we'll talk about. These are all the forms a voter can use to prove who they are. The state of Iowa has added a new form of ID to these forms, and it is the tribal ID. So up here in the top left corner, I'll show you a bigger photo of this at the very end, where we have a tribal ID. So Iowans who are members of a tribe, Native American Indian tribe, can use this form to prove who they are. Now, Ken and I were kind of laughing about this. We're like, there's no way that we can see travel ID in Polk County. And it came back that, yeah, it was used in the June primary. I'm like, I'm not buying, I'm still not buying it. Then it came down that it was used in Ankeny. And I'm like, I'm still not buying it. And Monday, our first training session, we talked about it, and it was used at the Lakeside Center in Ankeny. So a woman did use their tribal ID to prove who they were. So it's out there. But we'll talk about these forms and details as we get going.
I thought that the Secretary of State was going to send out voter ID cards.
They did.
To people
Well, they did.
who are in the green, or who are in the black book.
In June, you will know that we had handouts. We had voter expectation handouts. What can voters expect to take place at the polling place, where they get themselves into? You know, we try to find a way to take away some of that combativeness. Try to educate the voter before they got to the table. This is our version of our voter expectation handout this year, or this fall. We'll have 4 or 5 of these for you in your handouts on election day. And we ask that you put these handouts on the table facing the voter. We may even ask that you take one to the front door, so it, you know, kind of hits the voter in the face when they're walking in the door. We want the voters to know what they're getting themselves into. Remember, in June, we only had about 65,000 voters. In November, we're going to have close to 100,000 voters, if not a few more than that. So a lot of voters haven't voted in several months. So we want to re-educate them on what they can expect. It's a simple handout. 2018 voting at the Polk County polls. The poll worker will first ask, may I have your last name? We always ask the voter for their last name first, right? And then their first name. We may even have to ask the voter to spell their last name. So that's one of the, that they can be expected to be asked what their name is. The next thing that's going to happen, once we figure out who they are, we're going to ask the voter to verbally verify their address to us. That hasn't changed. We want the voter to verbally verify where they live. That helps us determine if that's them and that they have not moved. Right? Once we've done that, then we're going to, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to ask the voter if they prefer to show a valid form of identification, or would they like to sign the oath of identification. Now the wording here is important. We're going to, when I talk to your poll workers that final week in October, and we talk about this, they're going to be the ones asking the voter these questions. The wording is important. Voter, do you want to show us a form of identification, or would you like to sign the oath of identification? Why is the wording important? Because the Secretary of State put out a commercial, maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't, we're going to run it right here for you, that uses this language. And we don't want to try to stay consistent with them and with our voters here on election day. I'll show that clip real quick, Ken.
The Acting Secretary of State's office wants you to be voter ready for the November 6th election. It's easy. Register to vote, bring your ID, or sign an oath of identity, and cast your ballot. Register, prepare, vote. For more information, visit voterreadyiowa.org.
See where we're getting our language from? Okay, we're getting the language from the Secretary of State's office. We want to be on the same page with them so they can understand, what the voter understands what we're doing. And then last but not least, in red, we have the precinct captain will be happy to assist if you are not listed in the registration book, if you have moved, changed your name, or have an outstanding absentee ballot. And then last but not least, we have our phone number up there again. If the voter doesn't quite understand what's going on, then the voter can step off to the side, use their cell phone to call our office to figure out what's going on. This is a simple handout that the voters may or may not read. But if we have it on the table facing them, if we have a copy on the front door, they might know what to expect by the time they get to us and why we're asking these questions to the voter. Does that make sense? There's something that's not on here that was on here in June. Does anybody know what that is?
Yes.
What's on there? What's missing, Mona?
You had to, what's the other thing that you have to have? Proof of something.
In June, let me help you out.
Yeah.
In June, we had to ask the voter for their political party.
Yes.
right? In June was a primary election, we had 3 ballots, right? We had the Democratic ballot, we had the Republican ballot, we had the Libertarian ballot. So we had to ask the voter which ballot they wanted to vote. There is no party affiliation this year. You can mark, you can jump all over the board and vote for Democrat, Republican, and Libertarian all on one ballot. Now, can a voter change their party? Absolutely they can. We're not going to initiate that conversation. We'll tell you how we do that here in a minute, but that's not one of the steps that a voter can expect to be doing when they see us in November. Voter expectation handout, similar to June. You'll have plenty of those in your supply bag when you see me in a couple weeks. Hopefully it'll help the voters out in case they don't know what's happening. Make sense? Also in June, we had what's called a poll worker script. Do you remember that? We had poll workers follow a script, and we had every poll worker had one in front of them, and it was a script that we wanted the poll workers to follow. Same thing. We have a new script here. It's more like a flow chart than a script, but we want everybody to be on the same page. We want the poll workers to follow this script. So once again, there'll be 4 or 5 of these in your supply bag. Each poll worker is going to have one in front of them, and we're going to want them to follow this flow chart. And at first, it took me a couple reads for it to make sense. Now it makes complete sense to me. Hopefully it will to you here in a minute when we talk about it. But this is our 7th or 8th training session so far this week, and when the precinct captains left here, they felt pretty comfortable with this. And this is what I will hammer home to your poll workers when I see them for their training in 2 weeks. Basically, when a voter comes into the polling place, we're going to treat every voter when they come in the door as a green voter. What are green voters? Green voters are voters that are pre-registered voters in your black book. So when you come see me in 2 weeks, everyone gets a brown bag like this. Inside your brown bag is your black register books. Inside your black register books are your voters for your specific precinct. So we call them green voters. So when a voter comes in the door, we don't know who they are. We're going to assume they're a green voter until they tell us otherwise. So for this example, when a voter comes in the door, we're going to greet that voter, ask for their last name, if necessary, get their first name and have them spell it. If they give us their name and it's in our black book, that voter's a green voter still, right? Now we go down to the second green, and we'll have the voter verbally verify their address. Voter, can you verbally verify your address for us? If they verbally verify their address and it's in our black book, they're still a green voter, right? So we jump down to the third go. And that's where we're going to ask the voter if they want to show us a form of identification or if they want to sign the oath of identification form. If they do one of those 2 things, awesome. They get to sign the black book, they get to get their ballot, and they get to go mark their ballot, put it in the machine. They're now that 4th go. Does that flow make sense?
Will we be marking anything that they showed an ID?
No, we will not. We'll talk. We're going to go through how we do that here in a minute, Janet. But yeah, no. So we know. I'm no dummy. Sometimes I am, but I'm not today. We know that voters like to come into the door. They have their ID ready to go, right? I love those voters. Those are the voters that are prepared and are ready to go. Okay. Maybe next year we'll change things. But this year, we're not going to take the ID or ask for the ID until we first identify them and verbally verify their address. There's a time and a place for the ID, and that's that 3rd go. Okay? And it's very easy. I watch people over the counter in our office. I watch myself. It's easy for me just to say, hey, okay, thanks, Nona, or thank you, ma'am, and take the ID. Consistency. Okay? So if we see our poll workers getting in a rush, say, hey, Steve, slow down. Try to follow your script. Okay? If a voter comes up and hands you the ID, say, sir, I will need that in a minute. Let me ask you a couple questions. Okay? Yes, Tori.
I voted this morning at satellite, and I was asked to confirm my date of birth.
Yes.
Do you have to do that too?
No. Satellite voting and election day voting, yes, we're doing the same thing, but we're asking different questions for satellite voting because we are following that different script. But no, we will not ask for a date of birth for voters on election day.
What if, for instance, my driver's license has my full first name, my full maiden name, and my full married name? I think in the registration book, it's just Janet G. Houston.
Yeah, we're gonna get there.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
no, you're
I'm
great.
just
You're
jumping
answering.
ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you are right on track.
I'll just shut up.
No, Janet, you're right on. You are right on track. That is an example we're going to cover here in a few minutes.
Okay.
How can a green voter go from green to red? Well, if a voter comes in the door and the voter gives us their name and their name is not in the book, they're not in the book, well, we got to stop what we're doing. They're no longer a green voter, they're a possible red voter. And we'll send red voters over to the precinct captain for provisional ballot processing. Don't overthink this. I'm either in the book or I'm not, right? Okay, Steve Morrow's either in Mona's book or I'm not in Mona's book. If I'm not in Mona's book, Mona's going to stop and say, hey sir, I don't see your name in the book, I need you to step over to see the precinct captain. And the precinct captain will begin the provisional ballot process. Makes sense, right? That's one way a person can jump off the green and go into the red. Another way a person can jump off the green and go into the red is if a voter comes into the polling place, hi, I'm Steve Morrow, I want to vote, and you look me up and there I am, I'm still in the green, right? So we jump down to that second green and we say, Steve, can you please verbally verify your address to me? If I give you an address that doesn't match our record, well, that takes me off the green, takes me down to this red right here. If a voter has moved or has had a legal name change from the information listed in the black book, this is a possible red voter. Slide that voter down to the precinct captain for provisional ballot processing. Same as in June. We haven't changed anything, same as in June. Does that make sense? So far so good. We're going to gameplay all of this out. I'm just trying to make sure we get the script, we can make sure the script makes sense to us all. We have one more color. We have that yellow. And the yellow is, it says if the voter has an A next to their name without surrendering the absentee ballot, this is a yellow voter, they need to go to the precinct captain. So if a voter comes into the polling place, Steve Morrow for example, and you look me up, I'm in your book, I'm a green voter still. You go down to the second green and you have me verbally verify my address, and I do, I'm still a green voter. But if I have an A next to my name, which we'll talk about here in a minute, if I have an A next to my name, that means I have an outstanding absentee ballot. That takes me off the green and right to the yellow. And that means we need to go ahead and do something different with this voter. We'll send that voter down to the precinct captain. Our green sheet, red sheet. This is the poster that we will use on election day again. It looks exactly like this. The green sheet, red sheet. You'll have 4, 5, 6 of these in your polling place. At least one for each one of your poll workers who's checking in voters. I would definitely like to have one that's on the table facing the voters as they're being checked in. And then of course you have a huge poster that we ask you to put on the wall. Okay? We've broken our voters into 3 colors. We have green voters, which we love. We have yellow voters, and we have red voters. We're going to talk today about the green and the yellow and deal with the red next week. But our green voters are the voters in our book. Green voters already pre-registered, the ones we love so much. They come in, they come in, they get out, they vote, they get out. Okay? Also on this poster here is you have down at the bottom, you have all the different forms of identification a voter can use. Now let me ask you, because you work the field more than I do, would you say the Iowa driver's license is the #1 form most voters use?
Yes.
Okay? What would be a close second if there was one? Passport. Have we seen some passports? Military ID. That's what I've heard. I've heard driver's license, and then I've heard the passport, and then I've heard the military ID. So, but these are all the forms a voter can use. It's right down there for the voter to see. On the top corner here, we have an example of our oath of identification form. Green voters who don't have an ID or don't want to show an ID can sign this oath form. We will talk about this in great detail this afternoon. But that's what it looks like so the voter can see it. And then last but not least, we have, if a voter has to use a provisional ballot for whatever reason, we have down here an example of what it looks like. And it also says, if you're not in the register, or if you have an outstanding absentee ballot, you will use the provisional ballot envelope and receipt form. So this is a great poster for the voters to see and use, and for us to see and use. I'll walk around all day just like this on election day. I'll fold it in half, and I'll have green on one side, red on the other. I will even, and you can do this too on election day, I even number my sections. I do it for two reasons. One, it's easier for me to teach. And two, it's easier for me to find which voter I'm dealing with when a voter or a precinct captain calls me on the phone. Okay? You're gonna have this in your hand for the rest of the day. And I'm gonna jump to this screen right here. And this is our black register book. This has not changed. Janet, you may have not seen this before, but inside our black book, I broke it down into 8 columns. Column 1 is either going to have the letter A in here. The voter has an outstanding absentee ballot. Also in column 1 is where you will put your initials when you're done working with that voter. So if Barb is done working with Lisa Humphrey, Barb will put her initials right there in column 1 to let us know that that poll worker worked with that voter in case we ever have to go back and check it out, which we never have to do. Column 2 is a barcode. Throw it away, wipe it away. You don't need that. I crossed it out. It means absolutely nothing to you. Column 3 is political party. Okay, that is the person. That's how the green voters are registered as of election day. Okay, we will never initiate the political party talk. We won't ask the voter what party they are on election day. We don't care. But if they want to change their party, they can. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And that's how you tell what party they are. Column 4 is the voter's name. Every voter that votes, every green voter that votes signs their name, correct? Hasn't changed. Every green voter that votes signs their name. Column 5 is a status column. You're going to see the word absentee in here. And if you see the word absentee in column 5, you better bet your bottom dollar. In column 1, you're going to see the letter A. And we'll cover that in detail in a few moments. Column 6 is the voter's address. We'll use this column every single time, correct? Our poll workers will use this column every single time to verbally have the voter verbally verify their address to us. Column 7 I crossed out, doesn't mean anything to you. You can wash that away and forget it even exists. And last but not least, column 8 is a small box for remarks, and that's where we'll put a person's change of party if we need to, which we'll talk about here in a few seconds. So this is our register. This is our green books. This is Des Moines 56. This is Des Moines 44, Des Moines 58, Des Moines 46, Altoona 2, Des Moines 51, and so on and so forth. Why the voter's address has not changed. See that column there? That's probably a column, if we were to redo this poster, we'd probably do away with that column because we're already verifying the voter's address. I mean, that's part of the script. That's not a type of voter. That's just part of the process. So I want to go to number 2 where it says, voter has a valid form of ID. How do we handle a voter who comes into the polling place that has a valid form of ID? At this point in time, we don't know who that voter is. All we know is that a woman's coming to the table. And she's coming and she's seeing Maxine over there at precinct Des Moines 20. So the woman comes in the door, she comes up to the table, and Maxine's team says, "Hi, how are you? Can I have your last name?" Following the script. Lady says, "You sure can. My last name is Humphrey. My first name is Lisa." We look her up in the book, and there she is, right? That's our first screen. Now, she's in the book. Now we need to have Lisa verbally verify her address. So Maxine's co-workers will say, "Lisa, can you please verbally verify your address for me?" And she does. She spits it out. That's her address. So she's a green voter. So the next part of our script is to what? We need to say, "Lisa, do you have a valid form of identification you want to show us? Or would you like to sign the oath of identification form?" Now Lisa wants to show her ID. She gets into her personal billfold. She shows us her ID. She hands it to us. And we take it and we look at it. And we're only using this ID for identity only, ladies and gentlemen. Identity only. Is that Lisa Humphrey? Is that her? And we look at it, and that's her name, and that's her, so we hand it back to her. Once she's done that, our co-workers will take their highlighters, that's in their supply bag, and they'll highlight Lisa's name, and they'll instruct Lisa to sign her name. Once she's done that, we'll put our initials over there in column 1, and she'll walk down to the other end of the table, get the ballot from Peggy, Lisa will go mark her ballot and put it in the machine, and she's out the door. Would you say, for those of you who worked in June, would you say that was the majority of our voters? They had no problem showing us their ID. Most of them had them out all ready to go to begin with. Okay, these are the voters that we love. And that's how we handle these voters. We have them come to the table, we ask them for their name. Now, most voters come up and say, "Hi, I'm Steve Marr," right? We can't even get to the last name. They just say, "Hey, Steve Marr." I get it, okay? We may need to have them repeat it. Well, you know, it's always go with the last name first. Then we get your last name, and then go from there. So, real quickly, the ones that we love, voter 2, valid form of ID. Lisa Humphrey walks in, she sees Peggy at the Des Moines Playhouse, she walks in, and we don't know who this voter is, but she comes up and she says, "Hi, I want to vote." We get her name, it's Lisa Humphrey. We look her up in the black book, and there she is. So Peggy's co-workers ask Lisa to verbally verify her address, and she does. And the next part is important. This wording is important. Lisa, you have a valid form of ID you want to show us, or do you want to sign the oath of identification? I want to show you my driver's license and my passport. Here you go. And she hands us her passport. We look at it. That's Lisa Humphrey. We hand it back to her. We highlight her name. She signs her name. She gets her ballot. She puts it in the machine. She's out the door. Voter who has no valid form of ID. What do we do with a voter who does not have a valid form of ID? Well, at this point in time, we don't know what they have, right? All we know is a voter walked into Callahan Middle School to Carl Martin's team. So Lisa Humphrey walks into the room, and she comes up to the table. She says, "Hi, I'd like to vote today." We get her last name, Humphrey, first name Lisa. And we look her up in the book, and there she is. She's a green voter, right? So the next thing we do is we have Lisa verbally verify her address. And she does, and it matches our record. So the next thing we say according to our script is, "Lisa, do you have an oath, do you have a form of identity you want to show us, or do you want to sign the oath of identification?" And she says, "Shoot, I left my purse at home, or I left my wallet in the car." Do they have to go back and get that? No, they do not. They don't need to go back home to get their purse. They don't need to walk out to the car to get their billfold. Okay? If they are a green voter, if they are in your black register book, and their name checks out and they verbally verify their address, if they don't have their driver's license, they get the option of signing the oath of identification form. In your supplies will be packets like this. Okay? Packets like this. And a voter, a green voter in your black register book who does not have their ID gets to fill this out. It's real simple. They print their name, they give us their address, and they sign and date it. Now, does this voter have to sign the black book still? Absolutely. Every voter that comes in and votes on a machine has to sign the black book. So they're signing twice. Excuse me. What do we do with these forms after the voter signed it? We make a running pile behind us. Okay, we just make a running pile. We'll keep that pile going until the end of the day. I will tell you at the end of this presentation where they go at the end of the night. Excuse me. This does not require precinct captain approval. Okay? You don't need to stop what you're doing. You might be doing something else. You don't need to stop what you're doing to okay a voter for filling out this oath of identification form. I will talk to your poll workers about this. They're going to have these in front of them, and it's going to be their responsibility to check in the voter, ask for their address, ask for their ID. If they don't have it, then they get to sign the oath. That's their responsibility. That's exactly how I try to make it work in June. Was that how it worked in June?
Yes.
Did some poll workers kind of hesitant at first? With a little nudge, did they get better at it? I want to make sure that the poll workers can do this. This is what they are getting paid to do. So before I go any further, let me ask you, did we have a lot of people signing the oath form in June? A handful? I think it depends on where you vote. I think it depends on where you work. Some precincts had quite a few in the 60s and 70s. Some had very few in the 5s and 10s and teens. Some somewhere in the middle. Okay? This is going to be a bigger election. Okay, it's almost going to be twice the size of the election we had in June. Okay, not quite that big, but almost. So we might have a few more oath forms than we did in June. This is okay. This is the state of Iowa's get out of jail free card for those green voters who don't have their ID on them on election day. Okay, this is very important. You don't want to send a voter to their car to get their wallet. We definitely don't want to send a voter home to get their purse or billfold or wallet. If they're in the register book, if they're a green voter and everything checks out, they get to sign the oath, they get to sign the book, and they get to vote on the machine. Why? Because they're in the green and they get to vote on the machine, right? That's our slogan. In the green, vote on the machine. Have we had any of those? Janice had one. Did anybody have a voter refuse? Okay, we know who those voters are, but if a voter comes into the polling place and when they first come in, we don't know what they're doing. We don't know who they are. They come in the door. They come in and they see Mr. Bennett over there at Eden Crest. And they come up to his table and they say, I want to vote. So we ask for her name and she said, hi, Lisa Humphrey. We look up H for Humphrey and there she is, Lisa. 1 for 1. She's in the green, right? We have her verbally verify her address and she does. 2 for 2, still in the green. We ask Lisa if she wants to show us a form of identification or if she prefers to sign the oath form. And she says, I'm not showing you my ID, no way. This is a stupid law. It's a stupid bill. All they're trying to do is stop people from voting. We know how voters get. All you got to do is say hi and it just kind of comes out, right? At that point in time, the poll workers or you may need to step in and say, hey Lisa, I understand you're frustrated with this process. But if you don't want to show us your ID, okay, no problem, but we need to have you sign this oath of identification. We want you to vote today. You get to vote today. This is where patience comes in. You get to vote today, but if you don't want to show us an ID, you have to sign this oath. If they sign it, fantastic. They get to sign the book and they get a vote. Okay? If they refuse to sign the oath form, if they refuse to even take it that far, then they're going to call this number on your poster here. Not you, the precinct captain, but the voter is. They're going to step off to the side, and they're going to call down, and they're going to get one of us, and we're going to explain to them why we need to either have them show us an ID or sign the oath. Bottom line is we want them to vote. They're a green voter. I don't care how they vote, but we want them to vote. They get the opportunity to vote. They're a green voter, but they have to do one of those two things. I don't think I've ever, I try to make fun of this example because I'm trying to make it not very combative. I want to make it less combative. I want to take some of the edge off of it, so I try to joke about it. I don't think I've ever had a phone call about this. I don't think a voter or a precinct captain has called and said, "Hey, I need you to talk to this voter." I don't think it's ever come to that.
I just had a voter that you could feel he had his ID and
Because I didn't come here enough to you guys, or they were told they had to leave and go back and get their driver's license. That's them succeeding. If a green voter is told they have to go back to the car and get their driver's license, they have won. They have succeeded in making us look bad. If we make a voter do a provisional ballot because they have, because we told them to do so because they didn't show, they have succeeded. Green voters in your book get to vote on the machine. In the green, vote on the machine, right? Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to get to Sally's question here. That brings me to my next one here. It's number 5. And it says, I'll read it to you here, we'll talk about it. Voter has a valid ID. Address is correct in the register, but the ID address is different. So this is a voter who comes into the polling place. Lisa Humphrey comes into the Bondurant Christian Church to see Sally. And she goes up to Sally's team. She says, hi, I want to vote today. Sally's team says, and I have your last name, Humphrey, Lisa. We look her up and there she is. She's a green voter. We have her verbally verify her address, and guess what? She does. She verbally verified her address, and it matches our record. 2 for 2. We say, Lisa, do you have a form of identification you want to show us, or would you like to sign the oath? No, I want to show you my ID. This is a great law. About time Iowa got their act together. So she shows us her driver's license, we look at it, and that's her, but and remember, identity only, but we happen to look at her driver's license and we see that the address on her driver's license does not match the record on our that she has told us. We go with what she verbally told us on our record. If what she verbally told us matches our record, we are good. She's a green voter. We hand it back to her. We highlight her name. She signs her name, and she gets to go vote, put it in the machine. For those of you who attended my trainings in the spring, this was me, right? I was that voter. I was that voter who had moved and had taken the opportunity and responsibility to change my registration with the election office, but had not gone to the DOT and updated my address here. Here's my license right here in my hand. So if I come in and if I come into your polling place at the Nickel Center and I say I'm Steve Maurer, I want to vote, you look me up and there I am, and you have me verbally verify my address, and I say 9444 Bottle Brush Road, and that matches my record. That's what it's on the record. And then you say, Steve, do you have an ID you want to show us, or do you want to sign the oath? I say, yeah. Here you go, ma'am. Here you go, sir. You take it, you look at it, and you notice it says 3224 Summit Vista Drive. We don't care. You hand it back to the voter, you highlight the voter's name, they sign the name, they get their ballot, they go vote. Yes.
Okay, dumb question. What if someone shows us an Iowa driver's license or an Iowa ID or a passport that is expired?
Okay, expiration. So, there is expiration rules. Driver's license is 90 days.
Right,
So it can be 89 days expired,
right.
and that's still valid. But with expiration dates for this year, if it is expired or it's coming close to expiration, what is our next option for green voters? Sign the oath. So we're not going to get too in-depth with expiration dates this year. That's something we'll talk about next year when things change. Okay?
So if it's clearly expired, you just haven't signed the
So
oath.
if it's clearly expired, if we're talking it's a year or 15 months, absolutely.
I'm not saying, I want to stop out at the DOT.
Exactly. I'm more concerned about them taking the driving or the written test at the DOT than I am about that. Exactly. But this example here got us into a little bit of it definitely got us into a pickle in March. And got us into a little jam in June too. Not a lot, but a little bit, where we were saying, hey, this doesn't match. We need to do something different. That's not what the law says. Green voters, this is a green voter. And this is an easy way to remember this, folks. If you're in the green, you vote on the machine. And this voter is in the green. This is a voter who is in your book, address checks out, but their ID address is different. It's a green voter.
If it's flip-flop though.
That's different. That's not a green voter anymore. Good question. You're thinking, I like it, Sally.
What is the question?
The question is flip-flop. What if I come in and I say Steve Morrow, 3224 Summit Vista, and my record says 9444 Bottle Brush Road? That's no longer a green voter.